In honor of 4th of July today, we're getting into our annual Locked On Chargers All Fireworks team, and this year, a couple of rookies found a way to make the list.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 7 seasons, but this is our 5th season as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making this your first listen today, and to make sure you never miss the show, go follow or subscribe for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and you can also listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Today, we are getting into our annual all fireworks team. We're going to start on offense with a couple of rookies bursting onto the scene, making their way onto the list. And then on defense, of course, that starts with the captain, Derwin James. And then we're going to tell you about a couple of guys that are ready to break out and be that next big star.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys who could burst onto the scene in 2023, but a lot of explosive players on offense, but it feels like after not a very explosive season, not a season full of fireworks offensively, the Chargers will need to rely on a couple of rookies to get those fireworks in 2023. But today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. David, it's time to roll out the 2023 All Fireworks Show, and this is something I think we've done at least a couple of times, but in honor of 4th of July, we won't be here tomorrow with you guys, so we wanted to get our all fireworks team out for you today. And I think, like I said, last year I think was a little devoid of fireworks. And I think that's why we put this year added a couple of rookies. Last year there were no rookies that made the all fireworks team. I think the Chargers are going to be relying on their 2 receivers they drafted, Quentin Johnston and Derius Davis, to bring some fireworks in 2023.
Yeah, they definitely needed to, right? I mean, that was part of the plan here going into this offseason. After the way last season ended, you look at your collection of weapons that you have. You have Keenan Allen, who is a phenomenal route runner, a guy who can get open. Definitely not the most explosive guy. Mike Williams, he makes some big plays. But, again, that yards after catch, not really his calling card. So what did the Chargers do? They go out with their first-round pick, and they get a guy who his number one thing that he brings to the table is being able to create with the ball in his hands. That, of course, was Quentin Johnston, the first-round pick out of TCU. Another just big, tall wide receiver, but a guy who can really make things happen, can make some big, big plays with the ball in his hands in the open field. I am very excited to see how that manifests itself in this Chargers offense this year.
And the one thing we went into the offseason saying the Chargers needed the most, right? Just explosiveness.
Exactly.
Speed offensively, guys that could help Justin Herbert kind of utilize his talents best, right? I'm tired of seeing that giant arm being wasted on so many 7-yard throws. And I think this is, I wish we had a slot for the team of the all fireworks team. I hope that it's Kellen Moore next year when we're having this conversation. But he'll have to prove it to us. But I do think that these guys both deserve to be on the list, even as rookies, for different reasons. I mean, I think when you look at Quentin Johnston, I think between him and Zay Flowers, the 2 best guys after the catch, if you're looking for most yards, most missed tackles forced, you talk about Quentin Johnston.
Yeah,
and that
45.
explosive play style is why he makes this list, even as a rookie, because I think he just steps onto the scene as one of the most explosive offensive players the Chargers have, being that quick at that size, that explosive at that size, a guy who can take it to the house once he hits full speed, right? And a guy who thrives after the catch. That's why he makes it onto this list. He needs to bring some much-needed fireworks in that aspect of the Chargers offense. And Derius Davis, another threat to take it to the house at any time. This is something the Chargers did not have, home run hitters. Yes, you have Austin Ekeler, who had a big touchdown last year, but there were not a lot of guys that are breaking away and running off long touchdowns, right? It just was a missing part of the Chargers offense. Now you get Derius Davis, the best return man in the draft, first-team All-American in 2022, brings 4.3 speed to the table, averaged almost 15 yards per punt return, and took 5 career punts back for touchdowns in college, David. I think very deserving of this list.
Oh, my goodness. You look at some of the most explosive players in NFL history. It is guys that can kick return and punt return. Guys that come to mind like a Devin Hester and a Darren Sproles. Those guys, when they touch the ball, when you kick them in a bad spot, goodbye. Your only thing you're gonna see is the back of their jersey, and that is the ability that Derius Davis brings to the table. A guy that is a true burner, a guy that's gonna affect you in two different ways. You don't do the gadget plays a lot on offense, but when you do them, you want somebody who has the speed to be able to break it and take it to the house when you do them. Derius Davis has that ability. He showcased that ability in college. Also, like Daniel just mentioned, the just crazy resume of being able to provide a huge spark on special teams, and that is being able to take that punt, take that kick return, and take it back to the house. Those are the plays that change the momentum of a game for you. And Derius Davis is hoping to bring that to this Chargers team this year.
And if he does, he'll be a worthy candidate of this team. But I think when you look at the rest of the fireworks for this team, last year it was hard to say because it was just kind of a lackluster offense a lot of times. But Justin Herbert obviously makes the all-fireworks team, one of the best arms in the league, ability to perform with explosions happening all around him, right, and be steady in the chaos. Obviously doesn't have fireworks as a personality, but did knock a linebacker out one time, right? And I think
sure did.
If we start to see him using his legs again, being that athlete that we saw coming out of Oregon who could do both things, there's no reason he shouldn't be back on this list or be a deserving candidate. But obviously coming off a down season by his standards, obviously. But I do think Austin Ekeler, even Mike Williams, I think both guys who still find themselves worthy of this list. You do have the Austin Ekeler 74-yard touchdown in 2022. Yeah. I think what I'm looking for is for Kellen Moore to put Austin Ekeler in more explosive situations. Amongst anyone who had 40 targets last year, Austin Ekeler had the 8th lowest average depth of target with anyone, or 25-plus targets last year. Led the NFL in yards after the catch by 135 yards. Had more catches than anyone in the league last year, obviously. Led the NFL in missed tackles forced after the catch. There are still some explosive firework parts of Austin Ekeler's game, but I'm hoping that Kellen Moore can get him even better opportunities like he has in years past with guys like Tony Pollard.
No, I think that's a really good point. And I think Austin Ekeler, I feel like the last couple of years, he has, his ability as a receiver hasn't really been featured as much. I feel like towards the beginning, he was actually getting split out wide and actually being used as a receiver in certain sets. And I think that is a missing link in kind of get more production out of Austin Ekeler, who we know brings that in spades. 1,637 all-purpose yards last year. And, of course, 18 touchdowns to just follow up his 20-touchdown season. So, to me, there's not many more explosive things in football than scoring touchdowns, and Austin Ekeler does that better literally than anyone else in the NFL over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, he has. He's been outstanding. I don't think we just saw him be that fireworks guy that we've seen him in years past, though, last season. He did have 70 missed tackles for us when you combine all the ones he did on the ground and through the air, so he still is electric, right?
Very elusive.
I think the other part of it was just how bad the Chargers screen game was and how poorly they developed their screens and how much that probably hurt not just the average yards per catch, but just the overall effectiveness and the lack of explosiveness. How many screens did we see last year where it's oh my God, if Matt Filer, for example, everyone messed up, but made that one block, he sprung for 40 yards, he sprung for 35 yards.
Yeah, there's so many almost plays that were just left on the field.
Yeah, way too many. So hopefully we can see him back. And also Mike Williams get back on this list because, it's easy. Banged up season last year, but the dude had the most 40-plus yard catches. He had 9 40-plus yard catches in 2021, first in the NFL. Last year, though, only 2. Can he get back on the fireworks team? Because, that dude's a big play waiting to happen. You think back at how many games where they needed points, they didn't have time, and he found a way to get them in field goal range. He found a way to catch a game-winning touchdown pass against the Kansas City Chiefs. That dude has made fireworks time and time again. But
almost 900 yards in 13 games.
Yeah, exactly. But we do have more guys to get into because that's just the offensive side of the ball, and you can't talk about the all-fireworks team unless you're talking about the captain of it being Derwin James, and they also get some fireworks from their fearsome pass-rushing trio. There's a couple new guys on the all-defensive side of this fireworks team coming up right after this. I do need to tell you guys first, though, that the best place to help you find the person for your job is LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every potential new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be back 100% and certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. They make it so easy to create a job post that I think sometimes I wish that my wife talked about me the way she talks about LinkedIn Jobs. She's a recruiter. She uses it all the time. But like the disdain she talks about other places compared to how she talks about LinkedIn Jobs is incredible. She always brags about how it's just the easiest way for her to do her job as a recruiter and just for her business to be able to find the right people to have a successful year in 2023 and end the recruiting season hard in 2023. They have simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you'd like to hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, well, let's get back into this 2023 All Fireworks team to celebrate this great holiday weekend. And also the 4th of July, as always, the fireworks are coming out. And we're talking about the Chargers' most explosive players who deserve to be on this team for one reason or another. And I think when you're talking about the defensive side of things, he was a mainstay in this conversation last year, and he is the captain of the All Fireworks team because he really embodies it in every kind of way. Like, there's no way to talk about Derwin James, or there's no part of Derwin James's game that doesn't bring the fireworks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just it's the quick twitch. It's the ability to read and react. It's the ability to get downhill in an absolute just millisecond. I mean, It's just unreal. Like there's just certain athletes that you watch out there that they make things look very, very easy when it's not. And that's what Derwin James does. He makes the game of football look very, very simple because of how incredibly athletically gifted that he is. He is the embodiment of explosive, whether he is hitting somebody or whether he is picking up Travis Kelce and smashing him into the turf. Derwin James is definitely the captain of the All Fireworks team for the Bolts.
Yeah, and it just, like, when you're talking about who is going to, like, the most explosive kind of personality in a good way, the most explosive kind of energy that he brings to the table, it's Derwin James. He's the vocal leader for this team. He's the mouthpiece for this team. Like, he is, they go as he goes, right? And I think when you're just talking about just the skill set and what he brings to the table, there's just not a part of his game where he's not exciting. I mean, if you're talking about coverage, right, you're talking about him going one-on-one with DeAndre Hopkins on a 4th and 1 and coming away with an interception, right? When you're talking about big hits, you're thinking about him, just absolutely body slamming Travis Kelce on the goal line to prevent a touchdown. And then you think about him as a pass rusher, right? The hit he had on Teddy Bridgewater a couple years ago, where it's just like didn't feel legal and was legal. I mean, kind of like his hit that got him suspended last year, right? I mean, just that is the kind of hits that he brings to the table. Game-changing power, game-changing coverage ability for his position. And he also is just a terror as a pass rusher. Like, if you have all those things put together, that is a dude who's made for the All Fireworks team. Probably the dude that inspired the All Fireworks team. Derwin James, maybe the most exciting defender in the NFL to watch. Yeah, I mean, he is. He truly is. He ends the conversations when you're talking about fireworks. But I do think the other part of this Chargers team that could be and should be fireworks for them in 2023, if they can all stay on the field together, is the trio of terror. And that is Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, and Morgan Fox. This is the group I'm very excited about defensively, David. I think this is what we hoped Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and Jerry Tillery could be, right? Like, if he had finally taken that step. Now I think we see it, right? These are the three guys. We didn't get to see it much in 2022, but if these dudes are all on the field rushing the passer at the same time, like, that is going to be an absolute nightmare for opposing offensive lines, and I definitely think they'll be bringing some fireworks.
Oh, yes. Yes, they will, and it's going to be a beautiful assortment of fireworks coming at you, and you're going to have to figure out which one you're going to block and how you're going to do it, because you got two guys on the outside that demand your respect and they demand attention in your game plan. And then you're probably going to forget about Morgan Fox and his ability to work you over on the inside and really just terrorize guards where he's much, much faster and has better technique than most of them do. And like, that's going to be really, really, really tough for opposing offenses to have to game plan for when you just don't know where. And of course, they're going to get exotic with it too. You might have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack on the same side. You might have them, rushing with Morgan Fox next to them. There is going to be so many different ways that hopefully this trio is going to be able to attack other offenses, that we're going to be able to see what this trio is capable of doing, which we have not seen. I think Khalil Mack and Morgan Fox helped each other out. I want to see what Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and Morgan Fox all do together and how it impacts their game in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, just Mack and Fox last year combined for 14.5 sacks in the absence of Joey Bosa, but we all know it wasn't good enough. And I think when you're talking about kind of the fuse that can set off this firework, it's Joey Bosa and him being on the field and being himself. I mean, Joey Bosa, even though if you're talking about like power, Khalil Mack brings kind of the explosive power. Like,
definitely.
Morgan Fox had a ton of games last year. It felt like the only way they could get off the field on third down was him doing something pass rushing, right? That would get them a stop on third down. Like, it just, those guys bring their own fireworks, but it feels like to fully ignite this firework, right, to turn this from an M80 into a Roman candle, you would need Joey Bosa to be there as the fuse to really set this thing off. Because if these three dudes are out there and they're all healthy, which we didn't really get to see, like Jerry Tillery was still a starter when Joey Bosa was healthy at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
By the time Joey Bosa came back, it was week 17 against the Rams, right? And then you had the weird Broncos game in week 18. So we never really got to see this trio. Hopefully we get to see it this year. Morgan Fox, welcome to the All Fireworks team. We have another new recruit to the All Fireworks team, somebody that I think earned his way onto this team and will still have to kind of prove it in 2023. And that is Asante Samuel Jr. I guess the thing is, David, if you get 3 interceptions in a playoff game, if you get 3 interceptions in a playoff half, you can make your way onto the All Fireworks team.
I mean, you get 3 interceptions in a game, you're going to have to, just in general, you're going to have to be considered for a spot on the All Fireworks team. But when it happens in a playoff game, and man, that right there makes a gigantic statement. And so I think
I mean, we all remember too, and Antonio Cromartie had that 3 interception game against Peyton Manning, right? Like, I think he had 6 total. He had the crow, the falling back one, like
the iconic one.
Yeah, like most corners never do that in their career. Like, that's just almost unheard of. Right?
Yeah, to get a hat trick, I mean, in a half. No, I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. But he's made
especially if Nathan Peterman's not out there, right? I
mean. Or what's his name who quit at halftime?
Well, yeah, that was the cornerback, I think, Vontae Davis. Yeah, right. That ended up quitting because, all of that. But, yeah, I mean, in a playoff, Trevor Lawrence was Nathan Peterman for a half in that game.
He made him look like Nathan Peterman. But, I mean, the thing with Asante is he's gotten interceptions every single, both of the years that he's been in the NFL. And I just think the way he plays, he takes chances. Yeah. He wants to make those big moments, those moments that you celebrate, right, on holidays. He wants to be the guy that's bringing that to the table. And I think as he gets more and more experience and more comfortable in this defense, those plays are going to be happening more and more and more.
Yeah, I think we saw something quick for sure, at least as far as the takeaway ability goes. I mean, he was awesome in that game. But you also saw kind of the volatile, combustible part of his game too, and that's part of the reason he makes this list, right? Because it's like sometimes he's looking over the bay and you have great fireworks going off in a show and you're with your family on a picnic blanket, and sometimes the Roman candle's getting shot into the house, right? And like, fireworks can be good and bad in a way. We've seen both of that from Asante Samuel Jr. If he can get consistent, though, we know he has the ability to make game-changing plays. We know he has the ability to make plays on the football, and I think he also just kind of has a firework type of personality, right? Like, wants Devontae Adams, wants that number 1 matchup, wants to get his back after he gets beat. Like, I think he does embody a lot of the firework stuff that even like Derwin James has, right? From a personality standpoint, a confidence standpoint, that part seems... Yeah, the attitude is there. They're definitely a very explosive attitude, and a guy who, wants to get in the face of somebody, wants to go up and make a big hit. Exactly. And so I love Asante Samuel Jr. graduating to this list. But we did last year something that was awesome for our 4th of July show, not only getting into the All Fireworks team, but also talking about some guys who could be ready to burst onto the scene. We have a couple more rookies we have to talk about, like Tuli Tuipulotu. He could get a chance if the fearsome, the trio of terror pass rushers can't all be on the same field at the same time. We could see another guy in Tuli Tuipulotu burst onto the scene. So we're going to get into some of those guys coming up right after this. All right, we got into our all fireworks team, and thank you guys for always making us your first listen today. And the everydayers know we will be back with you guys later on this week on Wednesday. Have a happy 4th of July. But we have a lot more stuff we're going to be getting into. We're starting our position group breakdown soon. We're going to be doing probably a Chargers mailbag on Wednesday. And even though I'm going on my honeymoon next week and David is celebrating his 10-year anniversary, we're going to still find a way to give you that full week of shows next week. Another 3 shows, even while I'll be in Cancun sipping on, some tropical drink. But today I do want to get into some of the guys who could be bursting onto the scene. And we talked about rookies in segment 1, David, getting into Quentin Johnston, Derius Davis being on the all fireworks team. It's harder to put Tuli Tuipulotu right there right away, even though he does kind of have that same style, very exciting, very kind of ferocious and kind of reckless even at times play style where he's just a total ball of energy out there. But if we're talking about guys who could burst onto the scene in 2023, I think I would start there as a guy who, might have a chance if some guys miss time to be that next edge rusher on the field.
Right, and you want to know what you have in Tuli, but you don't want it to be at the expense of Khalil, Mack, or Joey Bosa missing time. But also, we have to understand that we live in reality, and both of these guys have injury concerns in their history and in their career. So Tuli's going to have to be a guy that is going to have to translate the fireworks that he brought to the table from college football, leading college football with 13.5 sacks.
Yeah, at least leading the Pac-12, right?
Yes,
leading
the
there
Pac-12,
was Division II dudes who had like 25 sacks and stuff.
Right. Come on. That doesn't count. We got to look at level of competition.
One of them's on the Chargers right now, actually. One of their undrafted free agents.
You're right. But for Tuli, opportunity is going to have to be a part of this, but he has to be a guy that is ready to answer the call when his name is called. I mean, the Chargers drafted him in the 2nd round. They expect him to be a big part of their future plans. Hopefully, he is able to showcase when he gets the opportunities why he is an explosive type of playmaker on the defensive side.
Yeah, his will be all about opportunity, right? I mean, I think last year when we were talking about, like you said, Isaiah Spiller was a guy we thought might have an opportunity. We weren't sure about JT Woods this time last year. We thought Gerald Everett might burst onto the scene, which he kind of did a little bit. He was pretty good for them last year. But new guys to talk about this year. And I think with Tuli, I mean, okay, let's say, Khalil Mack misses 3 games and Joey Bosa misses 3 games. That could just be 6 starts in the first season for Tuli Tuipulotu.
Absolutely.
And whether it's fair or not, right? Like, I mean, that's going to be, he's going to be put in a tough spot. He's a 20-year-old kid right now. We'll see how he does. But I love his play style, and I think that he has the best chance to be the next guy up after Mack and Bosa just going into training camp, right? Because that position group for the Chargers is relatively thin, I would say, with, Chris Rumph being his main competition there.
Yeah.
Another rookie, though, David, I mean, how do you not put the Power Ranger as someone that could burst onto the scene? I think the thing is, yes, he may, have to win a job by beating out Kenneth Murray in training camp. But I think the other thing with him, as we've seen with some other linebackers, is he could make some splash plays on special teams and kind of announce himself that way too.
And that's where it's going to have to start for Deion Henley. And fortunately for him, he has a ton of experience getting that done in college, over 630 special team snaps. And this is a guy that was a core 4 special teams player. He was on pretty much every single unit that was out there. He is not afraid to do it. He is excited to do it. It is a part of his game that he wants to showcase. And he should. I mean, because that is going to be what ends up getting him on the field as a defender to allow his other physical gifts to take over and showcase themselves on defense. But I think it's going to start with him making some explosive tackles on special teams, hopefully getting a couple of fumbles. If that happens, that's one big way to get yourself on defense very, very quickly.
Absolutely, and I think he also has the ability to really stuff the stat sheet, right? Kind of like we saw him from Drew Tranquill last year, or like we see from Derwin James just about every year, right? Where like he can make impacts in a lot of different ways. Had a 5 interception season in college, had a 5 sack season in college. Very, very good tackler, can make splash plays in the backfield, can make splash plays on special teams. Maybe he goes and blocks a couple of punts on year one and ends up bursting onto the scene that way. I'm very excited. A very easy guy to root for. Going to be hard for him to get snaps, right? Kenneth Murray's going to get the first shot, and he's going to have to make his way up through the depth chart and some guys who have been around for a little bit. But if he can make it on the field, not only is he, a guy who could burst onto the field, onto the scene, but also a guy, could be a potential fireworks guy sometime. That's just kind of the talent. Both him and Tuli kind of fit both of these categories, which is why they come up first. But I do have a couple other guys here, David. One guy you talked about being in a right situation now, maybe not a position that's super sexy. You don't think about, fireworks, but this guy could really burst onto the scene in 2023 because he's now in kind of a new situation.
That's right. Zion Johnson, after kind of an up and down rookie year, I felt like he definitely showed some flashes out there, some great run blocking technique. I feel like he definitely understands what he's doing out there. But, he was playing, a different position, a position he wasn't really playing a lot in college. That is going to change this year. He's going back to his natural position of left guard, which he gets to sandwich himself in between two all-pros with Rashawn Slater at left tackle and Corey Linsley right there in the middle. So I think that's going to be a great situation for him to be with those two players and also just go back to what's more natural for him. I think he is in to really break out and really show everybody why he was so highly touted and why the Chargers spent a first-round pick on him.
Yeah, I thought he was good last year for a rookie. To switch sides and just have to make that transition from the collegiate game to the NFL game at that position where the dudes that play defensive tackle in this league now are like Aaron Donald, right? And he had to go up against DeForest Buckner last year, had to go up against Eric Armstead last year, right? Had to go up against Chris Jones. That is such a tough transition, and I thought he did pretty well considering. Now he gets to be next to an all-pro in Rashawn Slater and another all-pro in Corey Linsley. So that's definitely going to help. I think switching back to that side, I know one offensive lineman, I can't remember who it was, said it's like wiping your butt with the opposite hand, right? It just, there's something a little bit unnatural about it.
Feels weird.
And I think that's part of the reason, you saw Jamari Sawyer do so great last year at left tackle. He'd just been doing it, right? Like that was where he had, had come from at Georgia. I think Zion Johnson, I picked him for this last year, right? Maybe didn't burst onto the scene officially in 2022. I think has a good chance to do it in 2023. This guy, David, it would be an interesting one because he's had chances to be this guy that burst onto the scene. Yeah. But we've kind of had to take him away from our breakout candidates of the season because he's already done it so many times. That's Donald Parham Jr., who now, kind of like Zion Johnson, gets put in a new situation and a new offense, right? An offense that was much better in the red zone under Kellen Moore when he was with Dallas. Maybe that can switch things up. Maybe we can see it maybe more two tight end sets to help get Donald Parham into a position where he can be finally able to burst onto the scene.
Yes, Donald Parham Jr., and I'm hoping the way that he does this is being more heavily featured in the red zone like you just talked about. He is a nightmare, matchup for anybody to have to cover, and we just haven't been able to see him stay healthy to be able to be available to be put in those situations because you always are looking for mismatches, especially in the red zone when you're trying to score touchdowns, and that's what Donald Parham Jr. can present to you anytime he steps on the field. So hopefully Kellen Moore, he recognizes that and he features him and utilizes him appropriately. And hopefully for Donald Parham, he stays on the field.
Yeah, and he has all of the, physical tools. He's fast enough to do it. He's shown some yak ability. He's 6'8". Let's see if he can burst onto the scene under Kellen Moore, who loves to use his tight ends and got a lot of use out of guys like Dalton Schultz, who didn't really have a lot of expectations coming into the league, now gets a really talented skill group there. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. We will be back with you guys on Wednesday. Everyone have a very safe 4th of July out there. Everydayers, I know you guys will be back with us. We appreciate you. If you want to get your questions in, you can hit us up anytime in the next couple of days. You can do that at LockedOnLAC on Twitter. Get your Chargers mailbag question in, or send a 30-second voicemail to 323-524-7924. You can also find the show every day by subscribing or following for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from, or following me on Twitter at DanTalkSports and David Drogemeyer on Twitter at DroTalkSD. You can also find us at Locked On Chargers on Instagram and on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. So have fun, guys. Watch some fireworks. We'll be back with you guys on Wednesday. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.